Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. I'm your host, Ethan Vandehy. This is a special episode today because how I met this person actually happened through college. They were a guest speaker in one of our classes in communications and just an amazing man, very talented in marketing, and somebody I look up to. Welcome, Dennis Yu. Welcome to the show.
I'm just a search engine engineer, and I was one of the early guys at Yahoo, and I learned about search engines and digital marketing and social media. And I love seeing people like Ethan learning it too. My whole mission is to create 1,000,000 jobs, and we're a quarter of the way there, largely because of our relationships in Pakistan, the Philippines, and other folks. And I'd love nothing more than to revolutionize the education system and help folks like you and me build our personal brands.
Absolutely. And sometimes when you build the personal brand, you're going to go through ups and downs. And why don't you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about your life journey and what you've kind of experienced?
Well, I didn't learn English until I was 6. And I spoke only Chinese up until then because my parents, who immigrated from China, they thought correctly that if they taught me English, I'd have a broken accent. So they spoke to me in Chinese, and the way I learned English was at school. And you can imagine how mean little kids are. And they would
Mm.
say, Dennis, if you really like somebody, then you call them this. And I got sent to the principal's office so many times because I just didn't know. Imagine, Ethan, how do you know who to trust?
Yeah.
When people are, because little kids, they'll just say like whatever because it's funny, because they'll trick Dennis into saying this one thing which means something else, right? Have you ever been to like another country and they tell you to say this one thing, but that's not actually what that word means,
Oh,
right?
yeah. 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 That's happened a couple times on some vacations. Hey, say this. And you're like, okay, you say it. And everyone
Yeah.
looks at you funny. And yeah, absolutely. It's happened
And
for
even
sure.
if you don't know the language, maybe people sitting next to you, they're speaking in a certain way, and they're saying something bad about you, even though it's in some other language, right? Or whatever it might be. So I was kind of distrustful of other people because I'd been burned and bullied so many times. And I know this is like ridiculous, but at recess, kids would pick teams, right, to play basketball or
Oh, yeah.
dodgeball or baseball, and I would never get picked. You'd have these 2 team captains, and then they would pick between the different groups. And then at the end, there'd be like a couple people left. And I was always in the group of people left that never got picked. And I think I was already an introvert, but this made me even more of an introvert because I didn't want to speak English because it's like walking through, a minefield. You don't know when you're going to say something wrong or be made fun of. And I was also chubby as a little kid, and I didn't speak much English, and I had dorky clothes. All the other kids were wearing the nice clothes, or they had the Air Jordans or whatnot, and I had clothes from Kmart, and I had those Zips shoes, if you remember, the ones where like the
Oh, yeah.
Velcro. You ever seen those? Like
Oh,
old
yeah.
people wear those.
Yeah.
So that's what I wore, and I had clothes that were clearly not cool at all because they were cheap. My parents didn't really care about fashion, or they thought all that stuff was a waste of money, and you know how expensive these shoes can be, right?
Oh, for sure.
$400
Ridiculous.
Yeezys or whatever, right? But I didn't have anything cool. So I felt like I had nothing of value to, like, why would any kid want to hang out with me? I wasn't cool. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't clever. I didn't speak much English. I was made fun of. I think a couple people tried to be kind of nice to me because they had pity for me, but I was a loser, and
Mhm.
I ate all my meals by myself. And so I just decided, you know what? Screw all these people. I'm just going to learn. So and it's not like I hated these people. I was already an introvert anyway. So
Mhm.
I decided to get really good at school, and I read tons and tons of books, and I've read 4,500 books since then. And I would spend night and day at the library, even on the weekends. Can you imagine, Ethan, in the morning going to the library at like 9 o'clock when it opens and just sitting there all day and reading books for years, summer vacations, right? I go read
Hey,
books.
it's paid off. It's paid off
Yeah.
for you, so you can't get too
I
upset
remember
about it.
like 4th grade, 5th grade, school would get out at like 2:30. And where would I go? To the library, to the main library in my city, and I'd read books. And I've just, and this is, I know it's like weird, but because I didn't have any friends, I'd read like autobiographies like, Lee Iacocca, who is the chairman of Chrysler Corporation. He wrote a book called Iacocca, and I felt like I was having a conversation with him. Or Ray Kroc, who founded McDonald's, or he like took the McDonald's name and made it powerful. I read his autobiography called Grinding It Out. And as he was explaining when he grew McDonald's from like 4 locations to zillions of locations, I felt like I was having a conversation with him. Like, you know, hey, Ray, what was it that made you think that hamburgers was better than fried chicken or pizza? And I would
Yeah,
just
that's
pretend
great.
like he was answering these questions. So I wasn't a total loser. I mean, maybe other people thought I was a loser, but I thought I was kind of cool because I was having these fictitious conversations with people who were famous in history. Like I'd read the Bible and
Mhm.
I'd, have conversations with Jesus. Like, oh, what would Jesus say in this situation? And so that was my life, was doing that for the first 30 years of my life.
Yeah,
And
it's awesome. It's a great story.
yeah.
Do you think the way that you were raised and the way you grew up and the way you had to kind of battle some adversities has really shaped you into who you are today?
Oh, absolutely. I think I made lemonade out of lemons. And
Mhm.
for example, when I was being bullied, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna, like beat up these kids and grow muscles and like, show
Yeah.
them. But I said, okay, I'm being made fun of because I don't speak English. I'm gonna read a ton. And I'm gonna get so good at English that I'm gonna represent the state of California at the National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. in 1988, which is what happened.
Wow.
Because I was reading and reading. So I learned how to spell because I was reading. That's how you learn to be a good speller, is by reading a lot, by the way.
Mhm.
And you become a good writer by reading too, for the same reason. Input and output are the same thing. And I was good at math because I'm Asian and most Asians are good at math. They study math, they play the violin, that kind of thing. I didn't play the violin, but I did play the piano for a little bit. And so I was number 5 in the nation in math counts. And I traveled around and I did math competitions, right? And people would say, well, what do you do when you're a mathlete? That's what I was called.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when you have a math party? Because we do math competitions and then we get together and we have a math party. What do you think we do at a math party?
I guess you just solve tougher equations together as a
That's right. We
group.
do
That's
more math.
my
Yeah.
yeah.
That's exactly what happened. So I enjoyed that and I enjoyed winning, right?
Yeah.
I have a cabinet at my mom's house that's full of trophies from spelling bee and other academic sorts of things. Because, if you ever had it, like someone says you suck at something and then you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to like work extra hard. Or like, maybe you play golf for the first time. Like the first time I played golf, it was horrible. It was so embarrassing, right? I just wanted to leave because everyone would see like my shot was terrible. And the more pressure there was, like the worse
Mhm.
like I would perform. So then I took a ton of golf lessons and I read about golf. I practiced. I went to the driving range until my hands were bleeding to learn how to play golf until I got pretty good at golf. Right. So for me, adversity is kind of like a wake up call. It's a lesson like, hey, it hurts. It sucks to be, it's embarrassing when you suck at something, but
Yeah.
go get some lessons. Go learn from someone who's good at that thing.
Absolutely. You talked about how you read a ton of books. You've always been an active learner. So what's a book or maybe a podcast even that sticks out to you that, maybe you'd be like, "Hey, you got to check this out and read it today." And this is something that's very powerful.
There's so many because I've read 4,500 books, but I'd say Principles by Ray Dalio. Have you heard of Ray Dalio?
No, I haven't, but you can
He's
enlighten
probably
me.
like the 3rd richest man in the world. Not like that's the main thing about him, but
Mhm.
he founded Bridgewater Investments, which I think as of today is still the world's largest hedge fund. Hedge funds are when they
Okay.
manage other people's
Yeah.
money and they buy it's way bigger than VC, right? And this book, Principles, is on how you make decisions and how do you improve yourself when you run into problems. And he has this main diagram that shows this like squiggly line that keeps like squiggling up and squiggling. It goes up and down. It squiggles up. And it talks about the cycle of how you try something and you learn from it and you fix those mistakes, which is painful, but to face the mistakes and then you try again and you keep improving that way. And Principles, it's not just for people that want to go into banking. In fact, he talks very little about that, about banking, but about like, Ethan, how do you, if you were to objectively look at yourself, like imagine you're the patient on the operating table and you
Mhm.
were to hover 10 feet above and look at Ethan Van de Heij and everything that Ethan Van de Heij does. It's like a machine, right? as like a system, what parts objectively would you optimize? What kinds of things are maybe not the way you would like them to be, that you'd like to improve? And when you start to analyze objectively, then you can start to face things that are ugly, but start to improve them. And most people think that they make great decisions. Most people think that they're smart. Most people think all of this, but they're clouded because of their own biases, because of their
Mm.
ego, because of emotion, because they just really want to believe this one thing that's not true.
Wow. It's
How do you
powerful.
overcome these blind spots? By definition, it's a blind spot because you don't know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found
Yes.
that super powerful. It
Yeah,
makes you a
no, it
better
is.
listener, a better thinker. It makes you realize how blind all of us actually are.
So what's some things that you're blind on? I'm gonna call you out.
I'm blind on assuming other people know everything that I know. And I've been called out on this where I'll say, like, literally just an hour ago, I was on a podcast with my buddy who's got multiple 7-figure agencies. If you do a search for his name, Brady Sticker, you'll see Tom Brady stickers pop up, but his name is Brady Sticker. He started his new agency, Church Candy, is serving churches, running Facebook and Instagram ads to get people to come.
Mhm.
And he told me, and it hurt a little bit. I mean, criticism hurts. He said, "Yeah, Dennis, you have so much knowledge and all this, but it's so jumbled all over the place. And you use all these acronyms, and people don't understand what you're talking about. They don't know what you're talking about." And for me, the old Dennis would say, "Well, this stuff is so obvious." I mean, if you've ever done any kind of SEO or website building, well, obviously, if you look at this and this, and I was going through all these stats on his website and all these stats on Church Candy, which is his agency. And I said, well, obviously, if you can see, the links here and there and this content and this thing's wrong and that. And I was just going through it. And anyone who is a pro that does this for a living would say, like, yeah, that's all right. That's true. But I was thinking everyone else, like, obviously understands all these things because I've done it for such a long time.
Mhm.
And I catch myself doing that from time to time, where we do these, we teach people, we train people in digital, and things that seem obvious to us are not obvious to other people. And maybe you have the same thing too. There's certain things that you know how to do. You've done it so much, it seems obvious to you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, no, building routines is definitely one thing that I think is essential, and sometimes, like you said, there's stuff that you're very good at in your professional world and space that, the regular finance people or HR, whoever, whatever industry it might be, just don't get that yet. So
Yeah.
got to dumb it down a little bit.
It doesn't mean they're dumb. They just don't know about the thing that we do because they're
Absolutely.
smart in the thing that they do. Right.
Absolutely. So, what is something getting into a little deeper here? How do you kind of motivate yourself after, maybe something's been struggling for a while and you've been failing over and over on it? What do you kind of do to, like, bounce back and motivate yourself?
There's many ways to do it, but for me, having a failure is kind of the motivator. That might not be the healthiest way to do things, but I was at the trampoline park a couple months ago and I tried to dunk. I couldn't even touch the rim. And it's a 10-foot rim, but it's a trampoline, so it's actually really
Yeah.
easy. The whole court, full court, is a trampoline. And it was just kind of embarrassing. And so the last few weeks I've been practicing. I've lost 43 pounds in the last 6 or so months. And,
Wow.
now I can dunk pretty easily. But when for me, it's not true for everybody, but for me, like, having an embarrassing moment if I look back on my life, has usually been the motivator that's gotten me to do something. Of course, that's not not necessarily the healthiest way to do things, but for me,
Mhm.
it's like, something that I fail at that then causes me, like, I'm going to just put in the extra effort and then try
Yeah.
to, like, more than overcome the failure. Right.
Yeah. No, talk about your weight journey for a little bit if you want to. Like, how did you stay disciplined? How did you stay determined on it? Because a lot of people try it for a couple days or weeks
Yeah.
and they give up. So,
Yeah.
what
And they
did you
fail
kind
their
of
New
do?
Year's resolution like everybody. Right.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't think I have more discipline than anybody. I don't believe in that. Now, some people do. Some people wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and they're like a robot and they're perfect.
Yeah.
And, I admire that, but that's just not me. But me, I find two things If I analyze my life scientifically, I find two things. I look, because I do this all the time. You know, now I'm almost 50, so I can look back. I have data to look at, right?
Yeah.
I find two things have been true when I've been able to succeed at something and continue to succeed. One is the environment that I'm in. So I used to just work in my kitchen, which is full of food. So food had easy, you know, I had easy access to food all the time. So, gee, I wonder if I'm like working in the kitchen and doing podcasts in the kitchen, because you can work from home if you're a digital marketer, and there's
Mm.
constantly food. Because, you know, I'd go to like Costco every week and just buy, like, my mom's not there. I can buy anything I want. Right. And you can imagine like what's in my kitchen. It's everything I want. Like what would the 10-year-old Dennis want? It's here, right? It's like a way of me like validating, yeah, I have all the Cheetos I can possibly, the gigantic thing of Cheetos, you know? But I realized, you know what? Changing the environment is key. So working in the studio here, instead of working, you know, I have to go up the stairs to get to the podcast studio, which I guess I burn a couple calories, but not, you know, being in the right environment where I'm not constantly looking at food all the time is like a simple, obvious thing. Like, oh, you don't get fat because you don't have food around you all the time. Right. And then the second piece is being around other people that are the way I want to be. So if I'm around a bunch of other athletes, I'll become an athlete. If I'm around a bunch of other successful 7-figure digital marketing agencies, I'm going to be a successful 7-figure or 8-figure digital marketing agency. Right. If I'm around a bunch of people who have a certain habit, I'm probably going to acquire that habit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since you're big into data, what's kind of like your favorite thing to track progress on?
This one here, if you can see, is a Whoop 4.0. And
Okay.
every day, oh, many times per day, it tells me what's going on. Like you can't lie with the data. So if we look inside this app, you can see, well, it's kind of hard because like out of focus, but you can
Yeah.
see I had a green recovery, right? That green,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see I had 7.5 hours of sleep. And if I break down the sleep, you can see that I had 3 hours and 46 minutes of quality sleep and 7 hours and 41 minutes of like sleep. And you know, there's 4 stages of sleep, right? So this is
Yeah.
what we're like the dentist who knows the data. I might like talk over your head without giving you the proper context, but there, you know, there's awake, there's light, there's SWS, which is deep sleep, body sleep, and that last one there is REM sleep. Can you see that? So I just clicked on
Yeah.
REM, or I
Yeah.
can
It's the
click
purple one,
on
right?
deep sleep. I clicked on deep sleep, or here I'll click on REM so you can see. But do you see how there's it goes in these different cycles? So you know, with sleep, the average sleep cycle is like 60 minutes, 90 minutes. So in 8 hours, I might go through 6 or 7 cycles where I
Mm.
go cycle from being awake to light sleep to REM sleep to deep sleep, and then cycle up and down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is normal and natural. So you can see, I like last night I had 2 hours and 31 minutes of REM sleep,
That's awesome.
which is fantastic. So because of that, my HRV was decent. So you can see I had a 64 HRV last
Yeah.
night, but I even had like I've been in the 70s. So in the last week or so, I've been in the 70s. But if you go
Wow.
back 6 months ago, I was averaging like 40 something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is Dennis is the data guy. Like I could, there's nothing wrong with affirmations and saying that, you know, I'm a valuable person just as I am and all that. But I need to look at the data. Like my blood pressure was like 145 over 90, which is horrible. And then I got it down to normal. I'm like 125 over 90 now, which is great.
That's
Right.
awesome.
So I'm a data kind of guy. So imagine this, Ethan. Imagine you didn't have, look at all these stats. Like I've burned 700 calories today just by being alive, right?
There you
You can see
go.
all these stats here, right? My
I
resting
love
heart
that.
rate's at
I love
58.
data.
Yeah. But imagine
That's
how would your
insane.
life be different, Ethan, if you didn't have this measurement occurring and you just woke up feeling like, well,
Yeah.
I guess I feel like okay, but you don't really know what are the factors. Like if you have a drink, like just one beer, that can ruin your HRV because then your body can't get into deep sleep. And you could still have 8 hours of sleep, but your body's, because it's processing the alcohol, it can't get into deep sleep. So you could have 8
Mhm.
hours of sleep, but only like an hour of quality sleep, right? So just because I
Interesting.
used to think like, oh, well, just as long as I get 8 hours of sleep, but no, it's the quality sleep is actually what matters. How much deep sleep and REM sleep do you get, right? But if
Mm.
you didn't have the
Well,
data, how are you going
yeah,
to optimize?
they got to start telling these mattress companies to start marketing that. You
They
people
should.
want sleep.
Yeah, and
Wow.
don't buy a
Yeah, because
better
I've
mattress because
mattress.
it's fluffier. Buy it because you can actually test and see if your sleep stats are improving. If you can get an extra hour of quality sleep, same amount of time in bed because we're all busy, an extra hour of quality sleep. If you go from 2 hours of quality sleep to 3 hours of quality sleep per night, is that worth an extra $1,000 for a fancy mattress?
Oh, for sure, for
If
sure.
you
I
can
think
prove it,
people
right?
definitely, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with. I mean, for example, one of the guys that I had come on this podcast, he created the product called Frost Buddy, where it fits in, your slim cans, your bottled cans, and
Yeah.
all of it. So it's like he literally recreated the Yeti, but rather than buying 10 different Yeti types, it's all in one. So of course, people are going to take quality over
Yeah.
quantity, I think, all day.
Yeah.
But asking you or following up on your watch, so what else can that thing do? Because I have the Apple Watch here, but
The Apple
I
Watch is great, but the Apple Watch doesn't tell you all those other biometric kinds
I
of
was gonna
things.
say yours looks
Yeah. Like
insane on
I have
there.
Apple Health and I have these other things too as well, but there's basically two devices right now that dominate. There's Whoop and there's Aura. So the Whoop is a watch and the Aura is a ring. And a lot of people who have the Apple Watch will get the Aura ring because you don't want to wear two watches. That looks dorky. But I think the
Okay.
Whoop is slightly more accurate because the sensor is bigger and it captures slightly better data. They're both very accurate, but Apple bought another company that actually does all of these things a few years ago, and they spent some crazy amount of money, like $1.5 billion, which is nothing for Apple.
Not
But
shocked.
Apple, as you know, is slow intentionally to release things because they wait until it's perfect. So some of my friends at Apple tell me that next year's Apple Watch is going to have all those things, which they call basically like an MRI on your wrist or whatever. Like there's
Mm,
so many things like it can tell you whether your blood glucose level is low, like just all these crazy things. But
wow.
they haven't perfected it, so they haven't released it. But when Apple finally releases it, it's going to be amazing. And then I'm going to get rid of this once Apple, but Apple doesn't have it yet, right?
Yeah.
So we have to wait. Well, we
Is
have to
that
do this
something you
and
have to
then
charge
eventually get
too?
the new
'Cause
Apple Watch.
is that something you have to charge too, though? Because, I mean, usually
Yeah.
I charge this at night. So
Yeah.
when do you charge yours then?
Well, they have a little charging thing and you put it on your wrist while you're wearing it. That way you don't have to take the watch off. It's an extra battery pack.
Wow.
Yeah, they get you
Wow.
on the accessories. It's like another $50 for each one. If you lose it, you have to buy another one and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. What is something that, you really love about yourself?
I love dunking at the trampoline park. That's been my latest thing. And I just learned how to do an East Bay, which is an under the leg dunk. I did it. I
I
can
mean,
do the
that's a pretty
360s. I
cool
can do off the
dunk.
backboard. I can do all kinds of crazy dunks. Yeah.
No, that's sweet. It seems to me like you're living in the moment and you're
Yeah.
trying to embrace the fun. So
Yeah, I freaking even have my VIP bracelet on from Sky Zone. Other people are saying, you should get a sponsorship from Sky Zone because you go there so often.
yeah, you should. Maybe you can do some marketing for them.
Yeah, I know the guy who does most of their marketing, and
Wow.
he's also gone through my training. It's been 6 or 7 years. Yeah, his
Wow.
name is Ben, and he started as a Sky Zone employee, and then he became the guy. And so the top Sky Zones are all using him for their marketing,
Super
and they're
cool.
running Facebook ads and all that stuff, just like what we teach.
Hey, I do your dollar a day strategy for this podcast. I do it on Facebook and Twitter. So
Yeah,
been utilizing that for a couple of years now. So it's been going well. And
appreciate you.
I mean, you shared it in the class, and that's what got me hooked on it. So it was awesome. I guess we can kind of end with this question then. If you could offer any piece of advice, what would it be?
2 parts. Find someone who has done the thing that you want to achieve and do everything you can to get them as a mentor. A lot of people want to give you advice. Your mom and dad love you. They'd love to give you advice. But if it's on, how to build a SaaS company, My mom and dad don't know how to do that. They've never done that. They love me to death and I love them too. But credible advice comes only from people who have done the thing that you want to do. But that preassumes the second part. You have to choose exactly, specifically what goal you want to do. So I'd ask you, what exactly do you want to do, Ethan? Not just like, oh, I want to be a happy entrepreneur and make, 100,000 a year or what. No, you have to be like super, super specific about exactly how you make money, or exactly, you want to lose weight or play the guitar, like whatever goal, run your first marathon, whatever exactly, very specifically, could be multiple goals. Those particular things that you would like to do, find other people who have done the thing. And you'd be surprised at how likely they will give you advice. Like, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to run for Nike, right? I was pretty fast when I was a young adult. When I was 14, I broke 3 hours in the marathon, and not many 14-year-olds would even run in marathons. And I got to spend time with Steve Scott, who is the American record holder in the mile, right? And he encouraged me. I mean, back then, I think I ran like a 4:51 mile, and this guy ran like 3:40 something for the mile.
Oh, yeah. Ridiculous.
But with Steve Scott, he's giving me advice. He's credible. Olympics fastest person in America ever. Since then, people have gotten faster than him. But the guy's credible, right? And so many people will want to give you advice. Talk to someone who has done the thing and do exactly what they do. And when they look at your situation, they will give you insight on your blind spots and things that you don't realize that you don't know. There's a lot of stuff, Ethan, you and I, we know that we don't know. But the things that we don't know are the most dangerous ones. And those are the ones that hurt you. And so someone who's credible, who has achieved the thing that you want to achieve, can tell you what those things are that you're missing.
Wow. So one thing that I've been that's powerful stuff. And I hope you read the book Shoe Dog. That's a great book.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've been really trying to live by is what we call hot, honest, open, transparent. And it has been, I've been implementing that the last 3-4 months now. Realistically, I've been it my whole life, but you don't really acknowledge or know that acronym till a couple of months ago. And it's just like, man, that's the way I want to live. That's the way I want to be. That's my truth that I want to tell. And it's awesome to hear you share stuff like this and open up and get to know you on a deeper level. So thank you for doing all of this today. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Ethan.
Awesome. Well,
$1 a day on this one too.
Yeah.
Let's see if it performs better than the other one.
Maybe you'll raindrop a couple on it.
All right.